Hello, I'm Nakagawa, Executive Director at Monex Group, and I'm extremely happy to be at this REIMAGINE conference. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to REIMAGINE 2021. This is our 8th conference in a monthly series of events, bringing you nothing but the best projects, bright minds, and leaders in the space. We've been fortunate enough to invite many talented individuals and teams to come speak with us, providing updates, insights, and all the above that's happening in blockchain and in crypto. I'll be your host today, Adam, from the MouseBelt team, where we focus on early stage investments through our accelerator or providing development support to a number of growing projects, as well as education within our MouseBelt University program. Our main objective and goals are simple: increasing adoption, use cases, and real-world applications. We seek to educate our audience on blockchain by helping them understand crypto's real impact. Again, thank you all for tuning in today to the REIMAGINE conference. We have an exciting show for you. I'm going to go ahead and introduce you now to Nakagawa, Executive Director for Monex Group. How you doing, Appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us. How you doing today?
Very well, thanks. Thank you, Adam.
Awesome. So this is your first time on the
Yep.
at our conference. For the viewers tuning in, we have a lot of views coming in that have been following us, for the past year, actually, since COVID hit. So I'd love to maybe just touch real quick. How I see this going is, would love to get your background. Would love to figure out what Monex Group is what you guys are doing there. And then this is an NFT themed event. So NFT right now in the market is kind of booming. Would love to get your thoughts. But first,
Right.
Give us a little background, what you did before blockchain and what led you to blockchain and crypto.
Okay, so I've joined Monex Group 10 years ago. And I've been in charge of, I've been managing our Asian businesses. We have brokerage businesses in Hong Kong and in Australia. And I've also been involved in investments into startups as well as funds. And during that whole process, we stumbled upon this thing called blockchain or Bitcoin. It started with me personally getting bitten by the bug. So I put in a small amount of money. And back then, Bitcoin was a lot more affordable. So yeah, a bit of money could have bought, at least a whole Bitcoin, right? Today,
Yeah.
Buying a whole Bitcoin is like, it's like your year savings, right?
Exactly.
So, it was very affordable then. So that's how we kind of at least I got into Bitcoin. As a firm, we were established back in 1999, and we run a network of retail online brokerages business in Japan, US, Hong Kong, and Australia. But in 2018, which was like 3 years plus ago, a company called CoinCheck, I'm sure you remember that company, it was hacked, the NEM token, and in the magnitude of like $500 million. It was an existential event for them, and we basically came in to rescue the company. So since April of 2018, Monex has been operating CoinCheck. We own 100% of CoinCheck, which is now one of the largest, if not the largest, crypto exchange in Japan. And we also operate a crypto business in the US under our US subsidiary called TradeStation. So we are now deep into crypto. We're one of the few listed companies globally that have both licenses in the brokerage business as well as the crypto area. Aside from those crypto businesses, we also invest in crypto projects as well as tokens. So, and within the capacity, I am in charge of the investments for the holding company for blockchain-related projects. And I'm an advisor to CoinCheck, which is our crypto exchange.
Wow, a lot to unravel there. Pretty exciting. All of it sounds interesting. Would love to go down, those paths and get your thoughts. And regarding this conference, right? We've had everybody on, from projects to influencers to leaders, thought leaders, from private, public sectors, investors, right? It's all been great. I want to get your thoughts on on Bitcoin. Like how do you view Bitcoin in terms of, at its core too? Is it a global reserve? Like, how do you see a store of value? Um, a currency type thing, financial freedom. What's kind of your perspective on it? I mean, this is a Bitcoin crypto conference, and I'd love to get everybody's perspective and insights on how they view it, and everybody's different. So we'll love to get and it's might have even evolved, right? I mean, you guys are now dabbling into various businesses where, like you said, when you got into it, you spent a few bucks. At that point, it was testing the waters. Is it currency? Is this a dollar substitute? So yeah, I would love to kind of get your thoughts on how you view Bitcoin.
I think Bitcoin in itself, I think it's got multiple aspects to it. I mean, it's obviously, it's a store of value, a new asset class. It once used to be a form of payment. It kind of died down a little bit on that aspect, but who knows? It may come back if the price starts to stabilize as there's more users engagement in that asset. It's also financial freedom, owning your own wallet. Is very important from an inclusive point of view. So I think it has all sorts of aspects, and the whole space is evolving so quickly that it doesn't make sense to just characterize Bitcoin as one thing, right? It's got multiple faces.
No, that's great, and that's kind of one of the things that I think of it too. Financial freedom. It has some pros and cons. It does touch. Yeah, it was store of value. People thought it was going to be payments. We'll see kind of what happens in the years to come, but right now everybody's kind of huddling and trying to figure it out. So you kind of obviously have very interesting perspectives in terms of you guys touch different points in blockchain crypto. And what I mean by that is you are investing in projects, so you kind of see the lay of the land of the trends. You're running an exchange, which is infrastructure and really critical for adoption for people to come on board, everybody outside of this bubble that you and I are in. What excites you with all these lines of business? Seems like you have your hands in everything. And I kind of want to tie it even back to like the region that you're in, Japan. Right. Like you guys are one of obviously the leading powers, in the world. I forget, like number 3, right? Kind of like as far as economies go. Let's start with what's the strategy approach and what excites you with these lines of business? And you could take it however you like. You can go in order from importance of investment to the exchange, which is infrastructure, to, crypto investing for retail investors.
Okay, maybe I'll start with what is unique about Japan, right? So Japan, in all aspects of finance, retail investors have been the most innovative in Japan, and they have the largest risk appetite of all investors. I'm comparing with institutional investors, right? So retail investors have always expressed a strong interest in new trading instruments and more risk, right? So as you can probably recall, Mt. Gox was in Japan, right? And it was supported by a lot of Japanese traders. And back until 2017, Japanese retail probably represented 60 to 70% of global volume, right? So, Japan is not, the image of Japan being conservative does not apply to retail investors. That's number one. Now, the backdrop of that is that because it was a retail market, the regulators was compelled to somehow protect the retail investors from bad actors, right? And back in those days, 2015, 2016, there were a lot of bad actors, right? In 2017, I think we had this whole ICO thing, 2017, 18. So the regulators basically came in to protect retail investors. And when regulators come in to protect retail investors, it tends to kind of like overregulate, right? So Japan started with retail, ending up with one of the tightest regulatory environment. And this has somewhat killed innovation in Japan in the crypto market side. So today, I think Japan's kind of like retail representation of volume is, and I would say 20% now at most. So I think we've lagged significantly, whereas other countries chose maybe not to regulate in some cases and say, well, we're not going to regulate it, so we're not going to approve you. You're not going to have a bank account. But people found ways to kind of like get into this asset class. So I think that not being regulated and not having access to, the payments rail and fiat payments rail, I think it forced the companies that were involved to innovate much faster. The speed of innovation is the most, I would say, exciting part of blockchain. In general. You got so many interesting people from all over the world. I mean, it's a global thing. It's not only Japan. It's not only US. It's not only Israel. It's not only China, right? It's a global phenomenon. So I think it's a little bit sad to see Japan kind of like lagging in participating in this asset, because for example, like some of these CoinCheck, our crypto exchange, has I think 16 or 17 tokens, and we provide the largest number of tokens, which is kind of like, it's a fraction of what, for example, like what Binance does, or OKX, or some of these other Huobi large exchanges does, right? So, or even compared to like DEXs, right? I mean, we're just a fraction of them, right? So.
And so as a business, you shedding some light on kind of, the retail market, the appetite. What do you guys see from a business standpoint to get into the business? If I'm assuming it's a little bit more conservative from a business standpoint into getting into crypto, how have you guys like survived? And it seems like internally the motivation's there, the interest is there. You've been obviously you have like these different lines of business in crypto. How's, I guess, the mindset of management to kind of go into this space, knowing that, right, heavy regulation and all this and hurdles and all that? Are you assuming, I'm assuming you work well with, the government, the entities, the agencies to, it's a two-way, it's a little dance, and this is a long-term play.
Yes. So to begin with, we started from a really bad position, right? So we were hacked. The regulators were not happy with CoinCheck. They wanted to shut it down, and they wanted somebody who could fix the business. And fixing the business, including reestablishing the relationship with the regulators. Now, obviously, with us operating an online brokerage business, that we were able to leverage that the trust and relationships that we've built with regulators from that side of the business, and we were able to basically bring that into the CoinCheck management structure. And so I think for us, working with the regulators was our kind of like everyday thing already, and I think we were able to kind of like and that helped us turn around the business dramatically. Yes.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think, sometimes things have to happen that way to get everybody in check, get everybody on the same page, understand the risks that maybe weren't understood before. And, getting to a position, it seems like obviously they trusted you guys to kind of come in and handle, handle that transition, that responsibility. And so I guess you guys are long-term bullish, right? And would you say that the government actually also supports too? It's just a matter of the nuances, making sure it's maybe not reactive or proactive or one or the other, because they didn't shut anything down. Have other businesses popped up in terms of blockchain crypto related type infrastructure companies?
So I think we currently have 23 licenses, or maybe just over 20 licenses that have been issued. So it's growing gradually. I think the stance, I think we can draw a bit of comparison with how the regulators dealt with the FX markets in Japan, the leveraged FX markets. So the leveraged FX market was definitely a wild, wild west where there was no regulation, right? And people were providing 400 times, 800 times leverage. It was crazy stuff, right? And then from there, they basically said, okay, you can't do this, you can't do that. And they basically weeded out the bad players and made sure that everybody would, I would say, jump if they say jump, and duck if if they say duck, right? And once they had that, they would gradually loosen the grip, in a sense, and allow a little bit more freedom. Yeah. And I think, in the FX world, I think this took about, I don't know, 5, 7, 8 years, the whole process. Crypto would probably be the same. I think they started with a knee-jerk reaction of like, okay, you guys have to fix this very quickly, and very strict as well. Now, I think that because everyone is now, pretty much conforming to what the regulators require, I think we're going to see a gradual loosening up of the permissible activities by exchanges in the coming years.
And to stay on that topic, like, it seems like you guys are on a good path, getting the bearings going here. To keep it positive, shed some light on the exchange. The new users. It looks like people are coming on. You said it's kind of it's in a good position. At least an opportunity for growth amongst getting people into crypto. How has it been going so far, and how do you see like the next few years?
So I think in crypto, today we see two types of customers: retail customers. One bunch are customers who are kind of like FX traders. They do heavy trading, intraday trading. In Japan, we're only allowed to provide 2 times leverage in crypto. So they go in and out, they trade all day long. And the other bunch of customers is, they're kind of fans of cryptos, right? They're investor types. They put in like, I don't know, $1,000, $2,000 here and there. And they've seen their buddies become kind of like millionaires in over a month or two. So, you have these younger generation of people who basically say, well, okay, equity's boring, right? I mean, it's like, okay, you're lucky if you make 10% a year, whereas crypto 10% a day is very easy, right? So I think you're having the younger generation who have not been exposed to financial instruments as much, and they're game for a bit more riskier asset class. And I think the number is only going to grow.
Nice. And what about TradeStation?
Oh, TradeStation. So TradeStation is a U.S. brokerage firm, and it's crypto assets. We provide crypto assets trading now. Most of our traders are active traders at TradeStation. So we see a different pattern there. They're active traders. But one thing that we're trying to promote in the U.S. is because there is no interest rate whatsoever, right? We're trying to provide access to interest rates that people are willing to pay for USDC or stable tokens, or even Bitcoin, right? So we're trying to create this as an alternative to traditional assets to earn some money, not trade, trade capital. Yep.
Nice. That's interesting. I'm sure. Yeah. And would you say that the markets are the same?
I would say the US and Japan is pretty similar in terms of how we're regulated. Obviously, the US is a little bit more progressive
Yeah.
And obviously the players are very different, right? I mean, you have a lot more institutional grade players, service providers in the US.
Yeah.
And you also have institutional investors. In Japan, it's just very, very retail service providers and retail investors.
Nice, nice. And yeah, well, we'll see what happened with Biden's
Yeah,
administration. Like
or Gary Gensler, right?
yeah, like their tax strategy coming
Yep,
up. We'll
yep.
see what happens. It's gonna be very volatile. No, that's great. So we kind of just touched on the exchanges and kind of that part of
Yep.
Monex's business lines. And let's kind of get into the investment side, which is kind of an area that obviously you're managing as well. What's kind of the appetite? What's kind of the mandate there, and what are you seeing? What interests you, I guess, in the investment landscape?
So our investment activity has been very hampered by this COVID thing. We haven't been traveling for over a year now, and we haven't been able to meet founders face to face. Because investment isn't our core business. We do it primarily if there is business synergies, right? And we prefer to meet face to face, but we continue to be interested in key areas like the NFT area, which is the new kid on the block, probably the DeFi space. It's the usual suspects that's in there. We are also working on certain POCs that would bridge blockchain with existing financial systems, and that's something that we're doing, to try to see whether, there are areas that there's a lot of promise in blockchain always, but you haven't seen it really being delivered yet. So we're giving it a shot ourselves as well.
Yeah, I mean, there still are a lot of challenges and barriers in some of the biggest problems you're kind of tackling, actually, which is like access to liquidity, which is kind of your trading, right? Your investment aspects. Regarding the POC, so that's kind of going into, so I guess that would benefit more, increase adoption in terms of integrating blockchain into kind of the legacy systems,
Yes.
And where do you see the demand from? Is there a lot of interest in terms of, hey, I want to try this out, let's leverage this technology for different verticals, right? I mean, you have kind of your healthcares, your oil and energy, you have logistics. Where are you kind of seeing some of these pain points, maybe at its core, at a high level, that you're seeing a lot of these, entities or companies, looking to try this tech out?
So one of the largest pain points is, for example, like if you talk about replacing an equity trading system, the pain point is huge. I mean, you have to replace an existing running system that people have invested, tens of millions of dollars, right?
For years, for decades.
For years, right? And the whole operational procedures is in place, and to try to reinvent the wheel, it doesn't make sense, right? And because you have, I don't know, hundreds of participants already on that platform, you need to have everybody move at the same time. Otherwise, you'll have to maintain two systems, which doesn't make sense. No. So you have to look for a space where things are still very ineffective from an operational point of view, and people are not willing to invest, and therefore, and it's not high volume, but it's critical enough that the features of blockchain would make sense. So and when you speak with potential customers or partners in this field, everyone is interested in blockchain, but they just can't figure out what really works for them in a practical manner. I mean, they say, okay, they can do this, you can do this, and a lot of people have done POCs, but when it comes to implementation, it just stops there, right? So our solution may change a little bit of that. We're pretty hopeful, but again, right, we can't do it on our own. We need to work with partners. So, we've been speaking with, I don't know, 5, 6 of potential partners. Everyone is interested. I think the interesting thing also is that they don't care whether it's, they're
totally.
not, they're chain agnostic. I mean, they don't care whether it's an Ethereum chain or whether it's Cosmos or whatever it is, right? As long as it works. But also, they don't want to deal with blockchain.
Yeah.
Right? They want to use the blockchain features, but they don't want to deal with blockchain itself. I mean, it's just like they don't have the engineers, right? And if it's going to be more expensive using a blockchain system, then they'll say, I'm fine using just an IBM or Oracle.
It's not going to make sense. Yeah.
So I think, but one of the companies that we've invested, it's a company called CurveGrid, and I think you're having a call with them. Session with them. They have this mid-layer middleware thing called Multibass, which is a blockchain as a service kind of like platform, and they connect the real world and the blockchain world, right, in a very seamless manner. And so the POC that we've built uses their platform. So the customers can just deal it as work on it as a web app, right? And the whole backend is going to be done on a blockchain. And this is something that kind of like lowers the entry hurdle, the barrier for a lot of our potential partners.
Yeah, because I think all they care about, and it makes sense, it's like, what's it going to do to my bottom line? Is ROI? How much is it going to cost? How long is it going to take? And it better be not marginally better. It better make a substantial increase in efficiency, effectiveness, cost savings. And do you think blockchain is there? CurveGrid's providing a solution, and we had an interview with them. I interviewed them today, and it makes total sense in terms of how do we implement and integrate blockchain technologies, part of the stack, into legacy systems. And that's kind of the barrier that you just talked about. In real life, that you brought up. Some of the challenges is like, why should I switch, right? Is it going to be even slower? Do I need to retrain my employees? And I think some of these infrastructure players are critical to the mass adoption on the enterprise front.
Yes, I think that when you say existing system, I mean, there are all sorts of levels, right? I mean, for example, like a web app is one layer. You can have, for example, like the whole backend system of a financial institution is one system, and the requirements are very different. But I think there are use cases where it can be done at all levels, right? I think that obviously, if you're dealing, for example, with the financial institution's backend system, I think you can imagine, for example, like a use case where you have multiple parties that need the same data, and using blockchain as, for example, like a communication layer between multi-party, multi-system kind of like environment where you have a blockchain layer that basically translates everything and it broadcasts its real time, right?
Yeah.
So I think there are various use cases, and I think that because people haven't seen really a use case that coexists with existing system.
Yeah,
I think people can't kind of people are having difficulty in really imagining how this thing can transform their whole kind of like environment.
Do you think it's just more of a waiting game in terms of like, let's just let the infrastructure play out to get to this next level of implementation? Because you're right, nobody wants to be in the POC world. From our experience with enterprises, they get fatigued, right? You're spending, it's expensive. So they're spending X amount of money for X amount of time. They get to the end and it's like, it worked maybe not that great, it didn't work and we're kind of over it. So like, do you see it from just kind of an infrastructure that we can get past that, this middle part of combining this blockchain solution into the stack with existing legacy systems? I'm assuming that's probably the dilemma at the moment, is just, we're trying to change decades of investment, decades of layers upon layers, from however many years ago. I mean, how do we get past that? I mean, it's going to happen, but we got to unravel some things and or have a plug and play from the blockchain side.
Well, I think for example, like cryptocurrencies, like Bitcoin, right? That in itself proves the value of the blockchain, right? It's a decentralized system, and it works, right? It's one of the safest network and it hasn't. It's been up for the past 12 years without any issues. So there's proof that it works. I think the challenge is always that when people have to replace their system, for example, like a payment system, you have to look for somebody who doesn't have a payment system that needs to connect with somebody who doesn't have a payment system. Whereas today, well, all the large banks are connected via SWIFT. SWIFT may not be the best system, but it's connected, right? So I think there will be, you'll need to start with a different approach rather than kind of like saying, oh, well, this is going to replace the whole world, right? I think there are certain aspects of life where you can complement each other with the existing and versus using the blockchain.
Another question.
People, yep.
And another question I was going to ask you, like private versus public, is that up for discussion and with kind of your clients, the space? Does it matter?
I think that banks or financial institutions have the tendency to prefer private networks or a consortium network.
Yeah.
And I think it makes it's fine because it solves certain issues. Using a private node, but also you have it doesn't kind of like benefit the whole using a blockchain as well. So you need to balance these things. I think that I think people are. I think they would compromise it with a kind of like a consortium model where it does have the benefit of scalability as well as a bit of kind of like network security.
Yeah. Which are super critical. And how do you view like DeFi? You work with banks, you're on this side of the business. DeFi is kind of a disruptor. How do you see DeFi playing out? Is it going to collide? Is it going to collaborate?
To begin with, I'm a great fan of DeFi. I think the concept is very interesting. In particular, I think DEXs are great. Kind of like it's a great creation. The challenge that for example, for DEXs is that no one governs it, and there's no KYC really, which I think in the world where everyone is held accountable for KYC, it doesn't work with the real world, right? As it is, right? But I think there could be a situation where, for example, like it could be a financial institution that does full KYC, allowing their customers to connect to a DEX, right?
Yeah.
That could be one way. Or we could have, and this is yet to come, for example, like an ID layer. Decentralized ID layer that basically verifies and is connected to various, whether it's the tax authorities or whether it's some KYC agent. Verifies your identity as well as your transactions, and you use the functionalities of DEX to the maximum, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's going to evolve from here, but DEX is here to stay.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, definitely. And you touched on a lot of points, like the KYC aspect, who's going to be involved, all these kind of super important,
Yep.
Flow processes that are in place that we're so used to, accustomed to, and we got to hash those out. Identity is a big one too, that obviously, it's kind of in the works. People's working on it. We'll kind of see where that lands.
Yep.
So that'll be interesting. And I kind of want to pivot now into like NFTs, and you brought it up a little bit earlier. This conference kind of with the market, we've evolved the conference as the market evolves, and it's been great. And now we're landing on NFTs. I'd love to get kind of your, first of all, your thoughts on NFTs, what that looks like, your perspectives in terms of, is there value there? Is it here to stay? Are we just in a boom, a hype cycle, which we are, but like, is it here to, where are we at, and what are your thoughts on NFTs?
Right. So as a group, CoinCheck, our crypto subsidiary, is the largest provider of NFTs in Japan. So our marketplace, we're a marketplace provider in Japan. And we operate 2 exchanges or marketplaces. One is called the so-called on-chain platform, and the other is so-called the off-chain platform. And the off-chain platform, obviously, one of the reasons why we were kind of like forced to think of an off-chain platform was because of the expensive gas fee that, it could kill all your profits, right? And there was so much uncertainty that we had to create an off-chain exchange where people could trade these things more freely without any fear of exuberant gas fees. So, but today we are the largest. We have business alliances with a lot of the large NFT players. And today we're seeing huge interest from our Japanese customers. And whether it be game tokens, whether it be art tokens, whatever it is, there's a lot of interest. And when you're not a gamer and you see these things trade for thousands of dollars, you just scratch your head a little bit. But that's fine, right? I think these kind of like hypes or bubbles, whatever you call them, is necessary to get investments, to get interest into the space. So I think we're going through this kind of like, whether it's called a hyper bubble, it's something that the market always has to go through in the first or early stage. And the business model is actually not really defined well yet. People just buy and sell, and just hoping that it's going to go up. But the potential for NFTs to really do a lot more than just kind of like price appreciation is, the potential is there. For example, like the royalty fees to the copyright holders is one thing that is totally different from how things are being kind of like traded in the secondary market for whatever it is today, right? So with the features on NFTs where copyright holders or artists would get paid, on the way up or even on the way down, for that matter, it is something new. And there can be various ways of utilizing this aspect as well to create a completely new NFT kind of like class. And it could be kind of like a membership or entitlement for some club or something that for example, like golf membership, right? Today it's at least in Japan, it's traded on paper. You have to pay the transaction agent a transaction fee and all these things. But these things can be converted to NFTs, right?
What are some of the, where do you see NFTs kind of maybe excelling, succeeding and I guess in terms of like gaming's one of them, makes total sense in terms of, makes total sense to who? The gamer, the content. Well, NFTs make great sense for creators, content creators, whatever that is. You're running your own business, influencers, right? Artists, musicians, and then for gamers too, if they're developing, creating these in-game assets. But it's not so good, obviously, for the publisher or the game central like authority kind of type of business. Where do you see NFTs? Where do you like NFTs kind of in terms, is it real estate, gaming? And you just mentioned kind of some of these other retail kind of avenues. Art, musicians.
I think whether it's art or whether it's game, but I think it's more in the space of kind of like promoting engagement between whether it's an artist or whether it's a sports club or whatever it is, or game organizer, whoever it is, and the fans, right?
Yeah.
I think that's where NFTs would excel most, because it has, aside from the scarcity value, it does have, it provides value in terms of like it proves the ownership to your kind of like enthusiasm or support to somebody, right? So,
yeah,
and you can express it through coding, right? So you can just code anything into an NFT.
What's going to continue the momentum in the NFT market? Is it going to be from the demand side, the seller side? Is it the content creators obviously trying to start this new revenue stream, this income? Is it the fan base community? I don't know where it's going to lie yet, but I've had this thought. I've had a couple NFT marketplaces on in our previous conferences, and I asked the same thing. Like, is it the artist that wants to do it? Is it the communities and buyers that want to, want the NFT? It's going to be interesting to see, because I mean, we see this in mass media, like, wow, 79 million, right? Like,
Yep.
You hear all these crazy numbers, but that's not really a good identifier like of everybody else, right? Because everybody thinks these NFTs can really trickle down to these local art musicians, right?
Yep.
And maybe they just don't know about it yet. So it probably comes with a little bit more education for them to want to take this route in terms of generating NFTs, minting NFTs for themselves. But where do you see the demand, I guess, coming from to keep this NFT grounded a little bit? And obviously maybe not in the next few months, but in the upcoming years, I mean, there's got to be some interest coming from one side or the other.
Yep.
Supply and demand.
I think it's going to come from both sides. Obviously, there's going to be a phase of disillusionment where all the NFTs, majority of the NFTs that people have bought may go down in price, and they're saying, okay, well, I own a piece of URL, an address on a URL, and what do I own really, right? And people are going to say, well, I want something else. I want functionality or want something else. And at the same time, our artists who have not been exposed to NFTs yet really are not aware of how this can change their lives, right?
The potential,
the potential. So I think it's going to come from both sides. And this whole hype is not necessarily bad, right? I mean, it also brings a lot of attention to it, and people, we're seeing tons of interest from artists who's never, who's been so far from digital, right? But they just want to understand how these things work. So I think the whole price thing and everything is doing a lot of good in terms of like raising the awareness of the space. So we're going to see both, interest coming, and it's going to, someone's going to come up with something that's going to be a major hit, right? And people are just going to kind of like, that's going to be kind of like a de facto standard for NFTs going forward for each obviously business.
Yeah, no, and when I think of crypto, Bitcoin, altcoins, Ethereum, blockchain, it's interesting. It's just really native to internet, right? It's native
Yep.
to kind of this next generation.
Yep.
And when I think of these NFTs, it's also psychological, right? Like you just mentioned, what do I own? Like, do I get to hold it? How do I, view it? It's going to be a different feel, a different sentiment. Right now it's off to a great start, and there's definitely a place for NFTs, regardless of where it lands. It's going to land in a bunch of different places, and it's going to be exciting to see the benefits, I guess, across kind of this new way of operating.
Yep. Yes.
What about NFTs and DeFi? You think they'll come together in some point where you can kind of leverage your NFT token? Dexes and all that.
Right. Well, no, I think, for example, like I think there is certain aspects of DeFi in certain blockchain games, like F1 Delta Time, right, where you own a token and you can lend it out, right? You earn, by lending out those kind of like rare tokens, or whatever it is. So I think there are certain aspects where where you can earn yield, right, by investing in these tokens and leasing them out in games, and people who use it probably would have a better chance of winning a game or something. So there are already aspects of that, and that is, to me, that's one of the most kind of like interesting things that I've seen in the NFT space, and and this within the whole past 6 months or so of development. So yes, I mean, definitely we're going to see more of that.
And it really touches on this peer-to-peer, right?
Yes.
Like being able to operate like completely. We just talked about DEXs. We're talking about, you brought up like artists and musicians with fan bases, which they don't have to use, central parties, third parties, or whatnot, and kind of go as direct as one can go, depending on the flow. But ultimately, this peer-to-peer is starting to take shape, right? And DeFi and NFTs and Bitcoin being able to like transfer money. We talked about the Swift code early, the Swift. I used to work for the bank for a number of years, and it's a slow process. You said it might not be the best, but it worked. But yeah, it was definitely, we sent the money and had to send messages, and they had to go check literally go check the other bank and then check the other bank. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So in one aspect, I just feel like it's all inevitable, which I think, like, do you think this leads into like IoT devices and other, outside of human interaction, like machines talking to machines, leveraging blockchain technology as well?
I think it's not a one takes all situation, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you're going to have, I mean, it's going to coexist. And I think once you have CBDCs, right, or stable tokens issued by, for example, like large banks, right?
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure where CBDC or stable tokens issued by large banks fit in. Whether is that closer to crypto, technology-wise, yes, but it's not Swift, because you can basically settle real time globally. Right?
Yeah.
And so, for example, like today, when you wire from Japan, when you wire your money, it goes into a U.S. bank account, right? And you don't confirm until let's say you buy dollar, when you sell dollars and buy yen, right? You get yen in Japan and you send dollars in the US, right? But with crypto or CBDCs or crypto technology, no matter where you are, you have the dollar in real time, right? You'll have your yen in real time. So I think you're going to have this kind of like one world where it will still use the banking system, including the Swift system, and then you're going to have P2P, where I send you the lunch money that I owe you, using whatever. And there's going to be some sort of like, enterprise settlement platform, which is going to be real time, which is going to use blockchain technology, but it may not necessarily be cryptos, but it's more closer to a CBDC or a stable token issued by, large financial institutions.
Yeah, no, thanks for bringing up CBDCs. I wasn't sure if that was going to fit in this conversation, but you brought it up, which has been great. Yeah, I don't know where that plays either. Actually, I think it plays in the favor in the government's hands. I mean, if they want to track and trace and have more hands-on, it makes sense.
That's the problem, right?
And you brought up a good point. Like, is it crypto? Is it, I already thought we were going digital, but I guess obviously stablecoin or CBDCs would be a little bit more hands-on in terms of like the programming, programmable money.
Right.
And do you see, like, we're right now, so far we've talked about like a lot of enterprise, institution, a little bit on the retail side. How does crypto touch into like emerging markets? I mean, we're in developed countries, so people understand a little bit of Bitcoin. Sometimes they don't.
Yep.
Then we have the dollar, so like it doesn't really matter. They don't think anything's going to take over the dollar, right? But there's this, you mentioned it already. This is a global presence regarding how Bitcoin operates and whatever coin we're talking about. So you think this is pretty beneficial to these frontier markets, these emerging markets, to tap into crypto and benefit their lives, financial freedom?
Yes, I think there are always going to be bad use cases, right? But I think a lot of the issues with these countries that have, let's say, bad governments, is they need means to protect their financial values, right? And that's why you see all these crazy premiums in some of these countries. But I think this is, there needs to be a way for them to protect their lives. And crypto does serve a certain purpose for that, right? Now, also from a financial inclusion point of view, people who can't afford to have a bank account, if they have a smartphone, voila, you've got your wallet, right?
Yep.
And once you have a wallet, then it's with you. So yeah. I think that it's financial freedom, financial inclusion, and obviously there are, also bad use cases like, money laundering and kind of like all these things, tax evasion.
It's funny you bring that up because I just hosted an event in Tanzania virtually, and we brought in one of our partners. But that was one of the questions, like, the bad actors, kind of the illegal activities, but right. Like in reality, I mean, people do that with the dollar anyways. Right. And I just told them, crypto is actually not a better way to hide your money or beat around taxes or money laundering. Because I mean, you have, you can trace and track all these transactions from whatever wallet. So I feel like that narrative, we've kind of gone past a little bit, and people can look beyond that and seeing, I guess, more of the positive that it can do. Like you said, if you can't open a bank account, if you're a farmer, some small micro business out in, this frontier market that's looking to get a loan, like crypto might be able to, help you out in terms of a stable coin or a local coin or something around there.
Oh, and also, for example, like, if your lifetime saving is like $100, $200, right? You cannot invest, right? Whereas in crypto, I mean, you can invest. I mean, it's an investment, right? And obviously you can lose your shirt on that, but at least it's got a chance of capital gain. And if you chose the right token, then maybe you can earn some staking rewards or lending rewards, whatever it is, right? So it gives opportunity for the not so affluent a chance to invest as well.
Yeah, no, it's totally great. I know we're coming up here on a little bit of time. One other question in terms of like in the investment aspect, what's your take on a lot of these corporations investing into Bitcoin as far as it being treasury, a treasury option, with it being so volatile?
Yes, I think it's we're seeing the whatever you call them, the innovators or early adapters, right? And I think they're the outliers at this moment, but because they're the early adapters, they were able to get it at a reasonable cost, right? And it has paid off handsomely for a lot of them. I think that as time passes and as the momentum of crypto continues to grow, I think you're going to see a lot more companies that are going to be compelled into doing this, right? Now, this doesn't come, I mean, a normal company would not say, okay, I'm going to put in $200 million and manage my own wallet, right? That's not really going to happen, right? They're going to say, okay, well, we need a good custodian, right? Look for a custodian. So you're going to have Fidelity, you're going to have, maybe Coinbase or whoever it is. You need institutional players to do that. So in that sense, I think that countries that have institutional grade custody providers will see the earliest adoption by or have the largest numbers of corporates that would diversify their treasury exposure into cryptos. And for that matter, I think the U.S. would be probably would have the most potential.
And that's where we've seen kind of the most recent, big time players going in, diversifying. Yeah, their treasury there. It's just kind of it's interesting. It was really early. I don't think anybody expected it. And
no, it's it's a large, it's the MicroStrategies and Teslas, but also when you see, aside from the crypto community, right? I mean, it's you have the old school hedge fund giants, right? The Paul Tudor Jones and Stanley Druckenmiller, and these guys were a legend in hedge funds industry. They are the guys leading, investing in crypto. So I think in any business, right, you have the early adapters, and they're the ones who go in first, and they probably win the most, right?
Yep. Now, what an exciting discussion here today with Yo. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day. We chatted about your journey into blockchain, what led you here. Monex has been doing various lines of business, involved in a variety of ways, supporting like the industry, adding value, doing your part as much as you guys can, and it looks like you guys are in it for the long haul. Where can people learn more about your team, your group, and kind of maybe potentially like getting logged on a trade station? Where can they get all that information?
So if you go to tradestation.com, it would have it'll have the TradeStation crypto banner up there, and you can go into that. If you're interested in CoinCheck, go to coincheck.com. We currently, because of regulation, we do not accept non-Japanese residents. So if you're interested in doing crypto with our subsidiaries, please visit tradestation.com.
Yeah, and this is also a global viewership. So this is an international. We're doing this on 4 or 5 platforms. We have every continent is joining in. We have millions of impressions, hundreds of thousands of views. So it's good that at least you kind of talk about it now, because everybody's going to watch this.
Thank you, Adam.
All right. So for all of you tuning in today, Thank you for visiting Reimagine. We hope you enjoyed this discussion with Yo Nakagawa, Executive Director for Monex Group. Great discussion on his path, what they're doing in the space. Very appreciative of his time to kind of share, his insights and perspectives. And we hope to have you back. We do this every month, so we'd love to invite you back.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure, Adam.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Reimagine 2021. I'm your host, Adam, from the MouseBelt team, and we'll see you again. Thank you.